thinking, there you are in May 1972. You've got a 6-year-old. You've got a
6 week old.
6 weeks old, I should say. Of course, yeah. And you've got your wife, and you decide, I'm going to step away from. I've been working with Hills for years, and go out on my own. Were you excited or terrified, or maybe both?
Well, I'm sure my friends were sick of me saying I'm going to go out on my own, and it's just one of those things. It wasn't particularly planned, but I had a little, shall we say, a disagreement with my employer.
Right.
And we decided that I was doing things that I shouldn't be doing in regards Nixers,
Okay.
So he and I said, well, look, the pay is not great, so I have to augment my income.
Yeah.
And I need to part company.
But that stepping out on your own is always a huge step, really.
It is, yeah. But like as I say, it made me say either pee or get off the pot. You know what I mean? Yeah, you know what I mean. So I had to. It was make your mind up time. He wasn't. I'd have either that or go and look for another job. So I said no. I had a little workshop, small, fit 1.5 cars sort of. And then what did I do? I think it was £100 severance pay, and I had a few tools, so I gathered them up, and I came up and I opened the door in my little workshop up here, and I met my father, and he says, what are you doing? I said, I'm working for myself now. You can just tell your friends I'm in business as of from now.
And life was here then already. It wasn't like you moved here with the guys. Life was here.
Yeah, I was born and reared in Farnkelly.
Right.
So I was in college for 4 years in Stephen's Green in Wesley. So that was the only time apart from that I lived, born and reared in Farnkelly as such. So then when we were getting married, we were got engaged at Christmas. No, yeah, I think so. Maybe the wife will tell you this as well. But anyway, I think it was Christmas.
Right.
And then we were getting married. No, it might have been June, and then we're going to get married in a year. So then I needed somewhere to live. So I said to my father, what are you doing at our lodge down there? It had a closure order on it, and a demolition order.
Right.
And only for my brother-in-law, who's a solicitor, he issued a civil bill. They would have knocked it down. Within 7 days. They did.
Wow.
So anyway, that meant, what we took over was a gate lodge, 30 feet by 15, with a closure order and a demolition order, of stay of execution on it. And anyway, it was rough and ready, as you can imagine. It hadn't been lived in it for quite some time. So I brought my beautiful wife to being a city slicker. I said, what do you think of this? And I think her face would have dropped down to her knees as much as say, you're going to put me in this. So anyway, out the back, the kitchen or whatever, like pantry or scullery, I don't know what it was called, it was made of galvanized.
Right.
So in the winter it would have been like a fridge, and in the summer it would be like an oven, And then she was looking at there was the actual kitchen comprised of a Belfast sink, which is fine. I have one now in my kitchen, but this was a brown one, which was the cheapest basic yoke, So that was sitting on 4 concrete blocks, and there was a 1/2-inch copper pipe sticking out of the wall with a tap on the end of it, and that was your washing facilities.
Well, I'm guessing there's a sort of energy that comes from stepping out and doing something like this. So you're almost blind to the hardships and the reality.
Well, this was me. I was still working, employed at this stage, and so then we had put in for permission to put a little extension on, and we got the permission at Christmas. So now we had 6 months to get it livable in. So at that stage, I was working in the garage in Hills, Greystones, and my wages were £25 a week, £25 a week.
Right.
And I had a man, Jimmy Smith, good mate of mine, who was dead and gone, and he was one of those blokes who could do anything. So I was employing him to work full time.
Right.
So his wages were £25 a week. So I came home on a Friday, I received my wages in Hills, and I handed them to him. And so then I had no money. So the only way I could exist was to sell a car. So I had to sell a car every week, and I got £25 £5 commission. So that was my wages. So that's what, and I'd be down in Hills, started there like at 8:30 in the morning, finish up maybe 7 o'clock, come up here, have a bit to eat, and then I'd pick up a sledge and knock a hole in the wall to put in a window or whatever, you know.
I'm going to think now that you have two sons, obviously Simon and Jeremy, who joined you in this trade. Where did it come from for you as a young? Was it family or?
Yeah, no, well, my uncle actually was in the motor trade. My father's elder brother, Gordon, and he, which I think about it now, he was over 50. He worked in Huey Motors. He was a workshop manager there. Then the war hit, and he was up in Belfast making bits for machine guns or something. And then he actually lived in this house, believe it or not, for a while.
Wow.
And then he went to Donegal, and he worked for McMahon's in Milford, and they had a couple of garages up there. And funnily enough, he was the workshop manager, and Derek Wilkinson from Derek Wilson Cars, his father was the workshop foreman.
Wow.
So that was a bit of a connection. And then he said in the 50s, you can imagine, he had 3 sons. So there wasn't, the prospects in Donegal in the 50s were poor.
Yeah.
So he was over 50, 52 or 3, and he up sticks and he went to Canada. And took the 3 lads with him.
Right.
And he worked as a rep. He told me he drove 1.5 million miles.
Good God.
Never had a tip. Very careful man. And so anyway, he passed on. So the 3 sons, one married a girl from Nova Scotia.
Right.
One married a girl from Alberta, where he was living in the middle, and the other married a girl from the West Coast. So we had the 3 daughter-in-laws were the East Coast, the Middle, and the West Coast.
For your own kind of teenage years and deciding this is what I'd like to do, was it a decision or was it just it sort of happened to you?
I tell you how it really happened. I mean, there was no real, I can't remember, I went to Wesley College, and there wasn't very much career guidance that I remember, and I was always kind of interested in mechanical things. Hey dog, stop eating that, it might poison you.
You big idiot, you. Get back.
So anyway, I was, when that particular year, 1960, I finished up. I wasn't very academic, so I didn't do the leaving.
Right.
I did the intermediate, and we had a big fire here. The hay shed burnt down. And this isn't very long.
Sure, no worries.
You can edit it as you feel fit.
Yeah.
So anyway, then we got a new hay shed, and we Keenan's and Bagnallstown, they built the shed, big shed, and then Dan Byrne, one of the men that was working here to help me with the house, and we blocked up the walls to make it usable. And my brother David bought an old motorbike in an auction for a couple of euro or a couple of pounds, and he couldn't get it going, and anyway we fiddled around, we got it going, and we're tired around the field on it. So and then that particular year we did hired combining, and the man that had the combine up around Enniskerry did all the small farms. His combine broke down.
Right.
So we just started, and I don't know, we combined maybe into October. So then we're down, we did the hay shed, and then I applied to Aer Lingus as a mechanic.
Right.
And they accepted, and they said, but we don't have an opening till next June. And I thought that was forever. Nowadays, you'd wait 6 years to get into Aer Lingus. Anyway, my father was over at Herbie getting parts or petrol, and just making a conversation, and he said, Rodney now is at home doing a bit on the farm, and I don't think he's a farmer. I wasn't interested. So Herbie said, sure, send him over, we see. So I went over, and £1 a week, and I got a rise of 50 or 10 shillings after about a month. So that was it. And then I started the apprenticeship there and served my time.
I suppose just 3 questions, quick ones to end with. Was there a time when you realised it's all going to be good, it's all going to work?
Yeah. Well, I didn't think I never thought it wouldn't work.
Right.
Because, I didn't go to the bank and borrow a fistful of money. Right. I borrowed £1,000 to make this house habitable. So, and then a pal of mine said I'd like a bit of heat. So he went off, and he was in that business, and he bought a boiler, and the boiler was £100, and all the other bits. So we spurged £200 on before we got anything done. But anyway, and my father was good. He sent down a couple of the men, and it's like in a sort of spring when they wouldn't be too busy.
Yeah.
And Dan Byrne and my brother David, and then Jimmy Smith then in the end, working every day, and me working at night.
No, with your own family then, Reuben's the white sheep of the family. He hasn't got oil all over him, so he chose a different career.
He wouldn't even know where the garage was.
So were you chuffed then when Simon and Jeremy
well,
could have got involved?
Were, like, Ger was a bit like myself. He wasn't academically inclined.
Right.
So I said, what are you going to do after you do the intermediate? He said, sure, I'd go back and doss around for 2 years. I said, you will, and he wasn't. And me paying good money to get you educated, so you can come and serve your time.
Right.
And then Simon, he just sort of seemed to want to follow him.
Right.
So that's how there was no pressure on them, but the garage was there.
Now, we're living in an area where in the last, I think, 3 years there's been about 6.7 million new houses built. So obviously business is good in that everybody has a car.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
do you feel the future, like say 10, 20 years time, given the move to electrics and maybe hydrogen and all that, is it going to be a huge shift in...
Yeah, well, maybe so, but I mean, you get an electric car, it needs tyres.
Sure.
It needs... its wheels have to be balanced. It needs suspension.
Right.
You know, all the running gear has to be done. And
Yeah.
there will be work on the electrics as well. So it will definitely be different.
Right.
You know, when I started, you had a mechanic, an auto electrician, but now you have a technician. You know what I mean? So there's a lad who's a technician. He goes to work with a collar and tie with a lamp under his arm. So you know, if you wanted to go into the motor trade and didn't want to get your hands dirty, you could certainly be.
Right.
You know,
because there's so much computerization in cars now anyway.
And I mean,
already.
like, God bless computers, because they give loads of trouble. I mean, we get every day you get somebody in with an engine management light on.
Yeah.
So you plug it in and find out what it is. But if you haven't got the equipment, you can't work.
Sure.
There's no way.
So I was going to say you're retired, but really, I mean, I know with your work with Tiglin and others, you're still like really active. I don't know whether there's a side of you that just can't imagine.
Like I do now. I read a little bit. Sometimes after lunch, I might sit down. I might fall asleep for half an hour.
Right.
And then I might read. But like this morning now, we're doing a bit of a job down the church, putting in an extra step. So I do a bit of maintenance down there, and there's always somebody looking for you. You know, sure, Rodney will do that. Sure, he's retired. So, the times I'm busier than I ever was. At least when you were working, you could sort of organise your time. You know.
Sure. Well, you were the boss of it.
I mean, I like meeting people and trying to get a dig out. You know.
Yeah, and you must, as I said, there must be a nice feeling that something you started 50 years ago is still thriving.
Absolutely, yeah. And I mean, if the lads weren't interested, well, I'd have probably broken it down into small units and rented them out, and just had to amuse myself. Like I have a man shed here, and I have a few old cars, but I'm kind of. I like driving old cars. I don't really want to be working on them. Unfortunately, that's the nature of the beast, that they do need to be worked on, you know.
And I suppose just to wrap up then, Audrey I'm sure is chuffed as well that you know, that there's a successful business in their name that she would have been part of from the start.
Yeah.
But just to know that you're kind of out the other side and you're a happy man.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm content now. It didn't make me a millionaire, but what good is being a millionaire if you're not content? But I mean, Audrey was there all the time, and I mean, it was certainly a culture shock to come out and live in the middle of a field after coming out of the city.
Yeah.
But she didn't go back anyway, so it
must have worked.
Yeah.